Hello. Thank you for joining Stop It Now on our 30th anniversary to celebrate, honor, and reflect on the legacy of our organization, our steadfast vision that child sexual abuse can be prevented, and on the staff, supporters, donors, and communities who share this vision and make this work possible. I'm Jenny Coleman, and I'm the director of Stop It Now. As a program of the Klingberg Family Center since 2014, Stop It Now has provided a distinct perspective that child sexual abuse can be prevented by creating hopeful, compassionate, and respectful pathways, resources, and conversations that empower people to speak up to protect children and to take courageous steps to get help whenever a risk is present. When we first wondered how we could share our pride in our 30 years of innovative leadership and programming, we knew that sharing some of the voices of those who have worked so hard over the years to shift the conversations we have about sexual abuse would be a perfect way to honor Stop It Now's impact. So today we're delighted to share some of these voices with you, talking about the past, where we're at today, and to help us think about the future. When we asked past staff, partners, and experts to consider submitting a video testimonial about their relationship with Stop It Now, we were worried that we wouldn't have enough voices. And while there's always more voices, we were graced with the generous time and sentiments of so many. In fact, in today's presentation, you'll see only portions of some of these conversations, but we will share more of these conversations in the future, so we hope you'll watch out for those. I like to think of this presentation as a field of flowers, each of these flowers representing the people and the conversations that have been impacted by Stop It Now. And today, we've picked a small bouquet to share these with you. Also, with deep gratitude to the Conrad Hilton Foundation, we'll also share our first ever Founders Award. Carrying on the courageous tradition of our founder, Fran Henry, we're excited to share with you the person that we feel demonstrates all that Stop It Now values: leadership with compassion and hope, courage, and generosity of time and heart. So more on that later. Conversations we've had with people who have been incarcerated, with people like Honey Faye Knock, and with survivors from all around the world have always been a part of our history. Having difficult conversations is what we do now, and what we will always continue to do and to model. Conversations we brought to the public through our early billboards on the side of the roads in Vermont, to our dialogue project in communities with partnerships in Philadelphia, Georgia, and in so many other places, to the conversations we're having today with young people online and with so many others in so many other places. Stop It Now has created the pathway to talking about what no one wanted to or could talk about: the sexual abuse of children and how to prevent it. We modeled having these conversations in the past and will continue to do so today and into the future. While still not an easy topic, we have grown in our capacity and capability to bring up concerns about children's sexual safety. And really, thanks to the work of Stop It Now, we're able to talk about prevention. Sexual abuse prevention is becoming increasingly included in schools, in children's sport leagues, and in many other youth-serving institutions as they look at children's safety and revise their policies and procedures and trainings. The CDC is now funding perpetration prevention, and this was also included in the Recovery Act funding. The National Coalition for the Prevention of Child Sexual Abuse, of which we're members, has identified prevention as one of its pillars for addressing child sexual abuse. The focus on prevention is no longer an afterthought, something we wonder about after a case of sexual abuse, but now is a part of early planning and conversations, in a large part thanks to our work. If I was to ask any of you to think of a word or two to describe what comes up for you when you think about Stop It Now, I imagine some of those words to be compassion, accountability, adult responsibility, safety planning, certainly conversations, maybe even social change, and hope. Hope is what keeps me here, and probably what has brought many of you here today. Without hope, we forget to pay attention. Without hope, we can become complacent. Without hope, we also lack courage to speak up. Stop It Now represents the hope that is necessary as we work so hard to keep children safe. So today we pause to acknowledge the impact of the model, dare I say, movement that Stop It Now has had with individuals and families, communities, really in the whole world. So again, thank you for joining us as we take some brief looks back at our history, talk about our present, and imagine our future. Fran said not to make this about her, but the story began with her courage and vision. You'll hear the respect for both Fran and what Stop It Now has accomplished in so many of our speakers. So Fran, I'm sorry, but you are going to hear your name repeatedly because Stop It Now is what it is because of who you are. One thing I've noticed over the years here at Stop It Now is that the connection people feel to this work and to Stop It Now specifically is long lasting. It's not just a job that you move on from or a project you did in the past. People stay connected, whether they were a board member 30 years ago, a volunteer 10 years ago, a previous executive director, or you met Fran or any of our staff over the years. The impact stays with you. I'd like to start sharing some of these voices with you now, voices from our past who have remained connected to what we do today and what we hope to still accomplish. This is our history and has set the stage for all that we continue to do. Of course, no one has remained more connected than Fran herself, and we're excited to share a bit of her conversation with Mark Rosenberg, as well as the voices of folks such as Jim Mercy from the CDC, other previous board members, clinicians, professors. We look forward to sharing this. So let's watch now.
You were really talking about bringing about a massive change in our culture. There was a culture that said, you don't talk about these things outside of the family. You don't even talk about it in the family. There are many people who say, when you go up against culture with reason or science or theory, culture always wins. There are many people who would say, I would never take on such a big task, but you were undaunted, and Stop It Now has been undaunted. It's no surprise that it hasn't been a cakewalk, but what you and Stop It Now took on was a massive, massive change in our whole approach to this problem.
Yes, and let's remember how many other programs went before this that really inspired me. You know, one of them is Mothers Against Drunk Driving, because when I was growing up as a teenager in the 1960s, I lost friends who had driven drunk and crashed their cars. You know, I had experiences, you know, seeing those wrecked cars and knowing how common drunk driving was and changing that thinking about what was preventable around drunk driving. Well, those programs really did that, didn't they? They made us understand the impact of people driving, and they taught us how to, you know, be willing to walk up to somebody and say, give me your keys, you're too, you know, drunk to drive, or teaching our children not to get in cars where somebody has been drinking. Same thing with smoking programs, which were so ubiquitous when I was growing up, you know, with doctors on TV smoking cigarettes, and, you know, teaching people, you know, teaching them through their ignorance so that they understood that smoking was really going to damage their health. So these kinds of cultural based experiences we have, drinking, smoking, they can be changed when people, you know, put their heads together and figure out an approach that really reaches beyond that ignorance.
Hi, my name is Steve Brown. I was on the Stop It Now board for 2 terms in some years in the early 2000s, and I think Joan Tabachnik heard about my work teaching sexuality education and invited me to a bag lunch, and we had this just wonderful lunch with freewheeling conversations, and their ideas were sparking my ideas, and vice versa. And I was really impressed with how progressive their thinking was, particularly about the connection between child sexual abuse prevention and the promotion of healthy sexuality. We even heard offenders talk about how if a kid had language to talk about sexuality, or they picked up that a kid had some sense of confidence around their body, that they wouldn't be a viable victim for an offender, and that it would be a certain level of reducing their risk for offenders. We heard offenders say that. So the connecting of those dots between healthy sexuality and child sexual prevention was really a rare at that time, and such a critical element of what Stop It Now was thinking about, and they certainly developed more over the years in that area. That has always made me feel like it was yet another way in which they were just doing such groundbreaking and innovative work in the field of child sexual abuse prevention, and making connections that the field hadn't made before, and really pushing the field to think differently and to think out of the box in a new kind of way.
Hello, I'm NJ Pierce, a classmate of Fran's from years ago. One day I called to check in, and she was sobbing on the other end of the line. I was stunned. She was always so collected. But it turns out she had just come from prison, where she had been interviewing those who were sexual offenders. I was so touched by how deeply she cared and how much intellect and focus she could bring to this problem. Years later, when the organization asked me to lead the transition from a founder-led organization to executive leadership so that the organization could go even further, how could I say no?
Hi, my name is Reva Siebold, and I've known Fran Henry since 1973, when I was a student at Harvard Business School, and she was working on the Hill in Boston on women's issues. And she's a dear, dear friend. I was treasurer for the first 10 years with great joy and great interest, as fundraising, as you can imagine, was quite difficult. Thank God Bob Mazur was around to help us some of the time. Fran did an amazing job. When she told me about the plan to start Stop It Now, I was totally excited and totally on board. I was like, wow, yes, 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 yes. I also had been a sexual abuse survivor, and really liked the way Fran was approaching it, because I totally believed that without talking to the perpetrators, it was putting Band-Aids. I had a hands-on healing practice for 40 years, and I put on a lot of Band-Aids, and it would have been nice to have gone to the cause of all this suffering.
Let's keep in mind that there was some prevention going on in the 1980s and the early 90s, and the prevention that was going on with respect to child sexual abuse was to teach children to protect themselves. And although that whole process, and there were plenty of programs out there at the time, educational programs aimed at children, trying to teach them what was and what was not, good, and what was good and bad touch. But I knew from my experience, from having survived child sexual abuse, that it just didn't go, it was really putting the responsibility on children to report and to know, and then to report something so grave as what I had gone through. And that there were plenty of people out there who would really appreciate the education and who'd be willing to reach out for help. I could know that because of the experience in my own family, because the person who perpetrated against me, my dad, always took responsibility for what he had done. That's not true for an awful lot of people, but that fact gave me the confidence and to build the program, knowing that there's plenty of people out there who are ignorant about this issue and really need help to overcome it. And the public health model provides that kind of educational help, looking at it from that science-based perspective of what are the real risk factors here? How do we educate around those risk factors? How do we reach people with, informational programs?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jim Mercy, and I'm the Director of the Division of Violence Prevention at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I am very happy to share this message in celebration of Stop It Now's 30th anniversary. Child sexual abuse has had a profound impact on me and my family. I am not a direct survivor, but I have witnessed its impact on someone very close to me and those around her. I've seen how the trauma of child sexual abuse can impact one's mental health and stability, how it can impact relationships with intimate partners and children, and how it can impact one's physical health in very significant ways. We now know and understand, in large part due to the efforts to Stop It Now, that the web of trauma that child sexual abuse leaves in its wake is a profound and urgent public health problem. And most importantly, we have the power to prevent it. My dear friend, after these many years, Fran Henry approached me and Mark Rosenberg at CDC in the late 1990s with a vision. She wanted to address child sexual abuse as a public health problem. She wanted to use the scientific and programmatic tools of public health to prevent child sexual abuse. We embraced and encouraged her vision, but it was Fran's passion, persistence, and intellect that drove us forward.
Do you remember the very first time you came to see us at CDC in Atlanta?
Well, first I remember seeing an article about your work at CDC, probably back in 1992, when I started Stop It Now. I saw what you were doing at CDC, and it inspired me to frame what I knew was an approach to prevention, to frame it and think about it and learn about the public health model. So I spent from 92 to 96, when we first met, learning about the public health model such that we could structure the program of Stop It Now in public health terms, in primary, secondary, tertiary prevention. And so my interest in meeting with you and bringing the idea to CDC started long before you actually, said, come on down to Atlanta. But when we got the program going and we had it first evaluated, then I felt strong enough about what the results were to be able to bring it to a science-based organization like CDC. And I was thrilled that you accepted the request to meet with you, because what I wanted to do with Stop It Now is that if our program was workable at all, I wanted to see it in a much bigger framework than just what the test model we were then employing in Vermont. I wanted to see it part of public policy, and that's because my background my professional work started in Washington, D.C. at that national level, where you make changes on a public policy level if you really want something to be lasting. So I wasn't thinking about all of this as if it was a linear process, but I certainly was thinking about it in a deliberate way. So I think by the time I approached you, and by the time I saw you in 1996, I had put an awful lot of thinking into meeting you, into trying to make these ideas make sense to you. So I'm really glad to hear on your side of it that it was welcome, because my fear was, just what we were doing would make no sense on the bigger scale.
My first encounter with Stop It Now was in the late 1990s. We heard Fran Henry speak at a national ATSA conference, and we were so impressed with her and the concept of reaching adults and pursuing primary prevention was compelling. So we invited her to speak at one of our early statewide conferences in Minnesota, the Minnesota chapter of ATSA. Shortly after that, her staff came to a conference here in Minnesota and talked about the progress they were making with the program in Massachusetts. And We immediately started a planning committee, and within 6 months, we had county attorneys' offices, local victim advocate organizations, probation and parole agents, and we started working very closely with Stop It Now. We learned from Joan Tabachnik about social marketing and the idea of primary prevention and reaching adults and not children, and expecting adults to be responsible for prevention. It was successful from the beginning. We had support from a local foundation. We later, and thanks to the groundwork that Joan and Fran Henry did with the Center for Disease Control, we were able to get significant funding from the Center for Disease Control for 5 years. And we launched a large social marketing campaign. And we had protocols in place. And what we learned, and most important, the public supported it, the legal system supported it, and people came forward to get help. That was the most important learning. If we set the right tone and we make it possible to get help before a child is abused, people call and came in to get help. Congratulations. I think Stop It Now is a truly valuable resource for everyone, and now internationally. And I'm very proud to have been part of it. And I wish you all the best.
Hi, I'm Keith Kaufman, and I'm a past president and former board member of WhatsOK. And I want to congratulate Stop It Now on 30 years of remarkably innovative and effective prevention programming. Stop It Now is truly a remarkable organization that has always been ahead of its time and on the cutting edge of child sexual abuse prevention. I remember watching Fran Henry and Emily Coleman presenting at an early 1990s WhatsOK conference. They were talking about the public health approach, the need for adults to take responsibility for prevention, and the role that offenders and treatment providers can play in prevention. I also recall talking with Fran and Joan Tabachnik, who served as an early consultant to Stop It Now, about their visionary approach to prevention. Their introduction of a confidential helpline in 1995 for child sexual abuse offenders, individuals with a proclivity towards offending, as well as their friends and family, was truly revolutionary. It was one thing to advocate for making all adults responsible for children's safety, and quite another to create a helpline and other programming to make it a reality.
Today, we are strong and we're continually growing. We know that our work is making a difference because there is just this much more ease to being able to talk about the importance of talking about child sexual abuse prevention. We know that we see child sexual abuse in the news daily. We know that there is more than ever conversations about what we can do to prevent child sexual abuse. And sometimes those are difficult conversations, and they go down pathways that can be complicated, such as conversations about behaviors that could be called grooming behaviors, which we prefer to refer to as boundary violations, and be very clear that behaviors that cross boundaries don't mean that an eventual case of sexual abuse is happening, but what it means are opportunities for us to raise concerns, to talk about safe expectations, to talk about how we can work together as adults and with children and with teenagers to think about what we can do to speak up and ask for help when we need to. We know that it's important to talk about children's sexual behaviors and to talk to children about their sexual behaviors. We know that it can get complicated because this issue can feel so black and white, good or bad, but it's not. There are so many middle grounds that when we can have conversations, we can actually prevent harm from happening. We can talk about looking beyond this is illegal or illegal behavior, as important as that is, but that we can also talk about what we can do to help folks take small but meaningful steps in their behaviors to seek out help and to ask for help. We're understanding more about the pathways that lead people to asking for help. We have been partnering for a number of years in offering deterrence programming, so that people who are online struggling with their behaviors, with their sexual interests, will receive information at very key pivotal points when they may be about to cross lines, go over that edge, if you will, that they will get these deterrence messages that say, hey, do you want to do this? This is harmful to you and to children, and we care, and there's help available. You can reach out to us. TikTok and other social media platforms are offering our deterrence messaging. Pornography companies are offering this deterrence messaging on their platform so that when somebody searches illegal content, that they get a message saying there's help available. We've learned so much over the last few years about COVID and how to make sure that services are accessible and available, and that when people are feeling isolated, that they know that there is support available. We'll hear more as we talk about what we've been up to more recently, about our trainings, about our new services, our website for young people, for children and teenagers and young adults who have questions about their own sexual interests, behaviors, or concerns about someone else in their life. There's so much that we do that we can't even always share it. We're a small organization. We have 3 helpline counselors, a communication and development manager, a communication and administrative manager, myself, and then our wonderful support from Klingberg. But as such a small organization, we often say that we're small but mighty, because we know that the work that we're doing are reaching so many people. And our helpline has reached over 30,000 people. And I'd like to introduce now a segment on our helpline. Joan Tabachnik, the first staff of Stop It Now, who took the very first call at Stop It Now, helped us with a conversation with previous helpline counselors, myself included, to talk about some of the experiences that we've had. And then we're also going to hear from some of our current helpline counselors about the meaning that this work has had for them, as well as a few other voices. So let's watch now.
I don't think I can talk about Stop It Now without also talking about the cornerstone of now, the Stop It Now helpline. Every day, Stop It Now is touching the lives of individuals and families and giving a resource that doesn't exist anywhere else. The helpline also grounds Now's work in real stories. And I know for me, having staffed the helpline, these stories are what I carry with me every day in my 30-year career.
The main thing that drew me to Stop It Now was their helpline. Had I known of that back in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s when my life was out of control, I'm not sure what would have happened, but at least I would have had somewhere to turn. I knew of nothing at that time and was just lost. So it was my pleasure to be on the board for 6 years. I commend all the work that they are doing. I continue to be in touch with Jenny Coleman and the staff. At times, if they have someone on the helpline that they feel could speak with someone with my experiences, we set that up. I'm just always happy to be supportive to Stop It Now.
Having a place to talk and try to get it out, because they didn't have any place else to go. They weren't going to likely talk about it with a family member sometimes because they're worried about the implications of how it'll affect family dynamics and all. So the helpline I saw as really, for some people, a very beginning place. How do I figure out, is there abuse going on?
You know, Peter used to say, when the helpline caller is feeling hopeless, that we hold the hope and we can help them look forward, and that there is a path forward, and that we can help them see what that is and what the steps could be, and experiment a little bit with them. You know, how many times have you role played on a call with somebody just to sort of see what would it sound like if you said this, or what would it sound like, or what kind of language would feel comfortable for you? So I loved that about the helpline, then when people really felt like they were trapped or had no options, that like you were saying, Jenny, like the satisfaction of being able to actually have something to offer in that moment, I thought was really powerful.
I think there's something about having a compassionate ear. You know, it's not just somebody to talk to, but somebody who is, we weren't jumping in right away and giving advice. We were really trying to get more and more of the story, getting them really able to open up and give more information. I think it kind of brought it to their consciousness and made them feel how important it is for me to take some action.
There isn't a lot of anonymity left in the world. There aren't a lot of spaces where you can actually place a call or ask a question and actually somebody can't figure out who you are. Whether it's, you know, all the numbers that people can track you down and figure out where you are and what number you're calling from. So I think that one of the values is the anonymity of the helpline, to be able to ask a question and have the safety of that privacy, I think is enormous. We know that the numbers would dramatically change if we didn't have that.
For me, like what, you know, having started this work by having these helpline callers, you know, stories that, you know, certainly, you know, in 1995 when it got launched, you know, there was nothing really much in the media, and the ones that were in the media were pretty, you know, horrific cases, you know, like, you know, Jesse Temendicus and Jeffrey Dahmer, like we knew their names, you know, and it was so amazing to have, when I would talk about prevention and talk about this is like within families, to have actually the stories in my head, you know, that I was thinking about specific callers, specific sort of stories. And I think that has grounded my work for these past 30 years in a way that I think if I hadn't had these helpline stories, that I would have been taking my stories from the media, which is just a really different context for what child sexual abuse is and can be, especially within families. Like those are the things which are, I think, just now starting to show up in, you know, in media, and in my understanding, like a real more compassionate way. Back then, it was really, you know, everything from like, you know, the stranger lurking on the edge, you know, the playgrounds and the, you know, trench coat. Like we had those images.
Now I'd like to talk to you about partnerships. Stop It Now has always valued the partnerships that we've built and maintained over the years. We know that we can't do this work alone, and we have so much to learn from others, and we love sharing the support. And it's not always easy doing this work, so these partnerships are even more important. In 2014, Stop It Now became a program of Klingberg Family Centers, and since then, we have felt stronger, we're able to hone our message better, we're able to reach more people, and we're so grateful to have them in this journey. We're also so lucky to be able to partner with so many other leaders in the field of sexual violence prevention and just youth-serving organizations that are taking care of so many of the children and teens in our lives. We are partners with NCMEC. We're members of the Association for the Treatment of for the Treatment and Prevention of Sexual Abuse. We're members of the National Coalition to Prevent Child Sexual Abuse, serving on committees and making sure that we're bringing a voice of prevention and hope to every table that we sit at. We value the partnerships that allow us to expand the awareness of child sexual abuse prevention, that allows us to share resources and tools, but also to hear more voices about what folks are facing, what barriers they have. We are always available to speak with anyone about prevention, and we look forward to partnering with many more people in the future. Also, we consider partners our sisterhood of Stop It Now. We're not the only Stop It Now celebrating an anniversary this year. We have Stop It Now in the UK and Scotland is celebrating their 20th anniversary. Stop It Now the Netherlands is celebrating their 10th anniversary. Stop It Now in Flanders is celebrating their 5th anniversary. And this year, Stop It Now Australia opened its doors. Due to the pandemic, we actually were all able to begin to work together more than we ever had before, starting to learn more about each other, completing a study together, writing a book chapter together, sharing our learnings, and we hope with further plans to think about the model of prevention that we are all practicing and how to strengthen that message and share our resources.
Hi, my name is Steve Girelli, and I'm President and Chief Executive Officer of Klingberg Family Centers, located in Central Connecticut. And Pat, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Pat Wilcox. I'm a Vice President at Klingberg Family Centers, and I oversee Stop It Now. So Steve, we're here to talk about our experience with Stop It Now. And let's go back to, why did you want Stop It Now to become part of Klingberg in the first place?
Klingberg has historically dealt with problems that children and families have and hasn't really done much with preventing the occurrence of those problems in the first place. And Stop It Now is all about primary prevention. So the opportunity to kind of move upstream with our work was very appealing to me and to our board and the rest of our organization.
As part of that, Stop It Now's philosophy was very compatible with our trauma-informed philosophy, particularly things like understanding that people's behavior makes sense and it is an adaptation to their circumstances, and that people who do dangerous things aren't monsters. They're humans who are doing the best they can with what they've been dealt. Stop It Now's philosophy of reaching out to the perpetrators and helping them to change fit very much with our understanding about trauma.
Agreed.
So have you found, Steve, that having Stop It Now part of Klingberg has enhanced Klingberg, and what ways have you noticed?
Well, in several ways. One is that it has just increased our awareness of things that we can do as an organization to prevent child sex abuse from happening within our programs and to help others prevent child sex abuse risk. Reviewing kind of what we were just talking about, I suspect I speak for both of us that we are very, very proud of Stop It Now and extremely happy with the decision that Stop It Now made and that Klingberg made for the two organizations to come together. I think it's been a wonderful opportunity for us, and very pleased that we took advantage of it.
I'm Susan Kennedy with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I direct our training, outreach, and prevention programs here. We are proud to partner with Stop It Now, and we're excited to be here celebrating with you all Stop It Now's 30th anniversary. I've worked in the child sexual abuse field for about 14 years now, and I think what I have always admired about Stop It Now is that their approach to prevention really challenges us to not accept a world where children are sexually abused, and in fact pushes us to consider what it would mean to live in a world where no children experience child sexual abuse. And the reality of that is that adults would need to step into really uncomfortable and difficult situations. And Stop It Now provides really unique, in-depth resources and support to all adults who need to come together to make that happen. I think Stop It Now has always and will continue to be at the forefront of finding unique ways to fill in gaps and provide resources to the field. And I think the WhatsOK app and resources that they've just developed are really a great example of that. So the National Center is excited to be here with Stop It Now. We're excited to continue to partner and see what this great organization will do in the next 30 years.
I think for 30 years, Stop It Now has been a voice of reason, a voice of validation, a brave partner. And, you know,
The topic of perpetrator prevention is absolutely essential. We in child protection cannot and should never shy away from it, because without it, the burden of disclosure is on the child. The burden of carrying any other victims is also on that survivor. So every hour, every week, every year that you didn't disclose, you carry the weight of other people's harm. Stop It Now and prevention of perpetration helps lift that burden.
I'm Minne. I work as a criminologist for the University Forensic Center in Flanders. And next to that, I am also the director of Stop It Now Flanders in Belgium, which is a kind of a comparable project as Stop It Now US, but then responsible for a much smaller region, namely the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium. And we started in 2017. So we are still much younger than you are. The existence and the process that Stop It Now US has gone through is remarkable and admirable. Friend Henry really opened the barriers for offender-oriented prevention at a time that it was certainly not evident. I would like to mention the importance of more tolerance in this world and understanding for human beings for who they are and who they can become. Sometimes with a little support and guidance, but also sometimes with new chances to do it better. And that's certainly what Stop It Now US is achieving, with a massive impact because of the great example they give for other countries and projects. I would like to thank you all, and especially Stop It Now US, for breaking the barriers and of course for the support and help that they brought to us for developing other offender-oriented prevention projects in this world and also in our country.
Hi, hello, greetings from the Stop It Now team in the Netherlands. Congratulations on your anniversary. It also happens to be our 10-year anniversary. Yeah, and that is why we would like to share some things with you, why we think our work is so important. Stop It Now has a unique position in the prevention of child sexual abuse, as it is the only initiative in the Netherlands which provides anonymous help to potential offenders of online child sexual abuse. We feel that prevention also starts with the potential offender, but there is very little attention or help available for these individuals. But it is very important to talk to these individuals who are concerned about their sexual feelings or behaviors towards minors, and to provide help so we can prevent child sexual abuse from occurring. Persons contacting the helpline are often very relieved that they are able to talk to someone, to talk about their concerns, and they are grateful that someone listens without judging and is willing to help them. Yeah, and that is also why we as project officers are involved in different projects and research to gain more insight in the individuals that contact us and also improve our prevention efforts. And in our work, we see that there's more attention for this important topic and the relevance of talking about online child sexual abuse. And we really feel that child sexual abuse is not a problem of the individual, but of society as a whole, where we can all contribute to make the world a safer space for children.
Hi there, my name is Stuart Allardyce and I'm the director of Stop It Now Scotland. We've learned so much in Scotland and in the UK from the remarkable work that you've been doing over the last 30 years, really protecting children from harm. And if there are some real tangible things that you need to be celebrating, I think some of the amazing things that Stop It Now US have achieved are that you've proved that perpetrator-focused prevention really works, and that we can reach out to individuals before abuse happens and reduce risks and increase protective factors. So I think there's something really important in all of this in terms of service delivery, but there's something bigger behind this as well that you can celebrate, which is that I think you've managed to shift the conversations that we have in society so that people begin to recognize that sexual abuse is not inevitable and is something that is preventable. That we can use a public health way of thinking about this particular issue. And we can really kind of make a difference by helping adults do practical things that make a difference in terms of the protecting of children.
For over 10 years, training has been a big part of what Stop It Now does. We have taken our conversations and what we've learned on our helpline and from so many of the conversations that we've had in the field to bring them to the classroom, to bring these trainings to folks who are working with children and families so that they can help create safe environments and help promote conversations that create safe environments. Circles of Safety was built on the wonderful work of Joan Tabachnik with the Let's Talk guidebook, really one of our flagship materials that helps people not only recognize when to have a conversation, but how to step into that, how to begin to say the words, to talk with others about concerns, to ask for partners with other adults in creating safe environments. So we created Circles of Safety to help parents and youth-serving professionals think about the environments where they live and educate and play with children, and to think about how to have conversations again with each other that are not accusatory, not panic-driven, but are about planning and being thoughtful and answering to children's development with appropriate protective activities and steps. Circles of Safety has been brought to organizations and people around the world, from Grenada and South Africa and Kenya, Colombia, to almost every state in this country. We've brought Circles of Safety to universities, all of the Pennsylvania higher ed universities following Sandusky, helping them prepare for a safer future. We brought our training to sexual advocacy and response services, to schools, to healthcare facilities. We have trained others to bring workshops into their communities to help foster parents and other involved adults understand children's healthy sexual development and what they can do to continue to promote that healthy sexual development, and what to do when there is a warning sign in either a child's sexual behavior or in an adult sexual behavior. We are very proud to be able to partner now with USA Football, and over the last year, our trainings have reached nearly 100,000 of their youth coaches and will be a permanent part of the training that they provide annually to all of their coaches. And we're going to hear a bit more in a moment about another exciting training activity that we'll be doing with USA Football. Circles of Safety continues to grow in every community. We continue to grow it as our knowledge, as the research grows, as we learn more about children's sexual behaviors and what we can do early to be preventive. Circles of Safety exists in webinars that we offer online, in the conversations that we have with experts from around the country and the world who speak on not only their own experiences of abuse and of perpetration, but of healing and recovery. We have made standalone self-paced training videos for communities and individuals to access at their own pace, and partnered with local churches for them to share these videos with the members of their church. We offer trainings live, and then certainly with the pandemic, we were able to move to a virtual platform and reach even more people with even more ease. We were concerned that it would feel watered down, but we've continued to have deep, meaningful conversations with professionals learning how they can bring prevention into their agencies, into their schools, and into their programs. What we hear from people who have taken circles of safety is that they were dreading coming to a training on sexual abuse prevention, but couldn't wait to come back the next day. Or that they went home and immediately began to practice some of what they learned as a professional at home with their own families, with their neighbors, within their own communities. We know that this training goes beyond teaching folks how to spot signs of risk and begins to help folks prepare to speak up confidently and calmly about their concerns.
From 2006 to 2008, I was the public policy director, continuing the work of Elisa Klein and the rest of the staff at Stop It Now in the DC world, where we are always, as a dear friend of mine used to say, "Are you back groveling for money again?" And I would say, absolutely. After the Sandusky huge amount of coverage by the press, as always, around these types of disclosures, we took advantage of that and were able to springboard into a statewide program for, I think this was probably round 2 of our Circles of Safety program, which was designed to take the messages of Stop It Now to bystanders, to come forward, to learn what to do in situations and how to, not only on the individual level, but at also their organizational level, the state level, any work that they would undertake to keep in mind that they could embed the prevention of child sexual abuse.
My name is Melissa Bright, and I am the Executive Director of the Center for Violence Prevention Research. I've been working with Jenny Coleman and the Stop It Now team for a few years now, and I'm so impressed with their work. I specifically became interested in the primary prevention program, Circles of Safety, where they educate adults who work with youth about ways to prevent child sexual abuse or sexual harm. And one of the reasons it's so unique is because it targets multiple levels of an organization. So not just the individuals who work directly with the youth, but also the staff, the leadership, the influencers, the parents, the friends of parents, and really emphasizes that whole circle of safety around the youth. And I am so excited to announce that in partnership with Stop It Now and USA Football, we are leading the evaluation of that program starting this fall. We're going to be able to do a large randomized control trial where we randomly assign 15 football leagues, youth football leagues, to receive the Circle of Safety package. And that's going to include coaches, staff who work directly with youth athletes, the leadership that might not work directly with the youth but work with the coaches, influencers, parents, booster club members, whoever is around these kids. And then also trying to engage other adults in the kids' lives through this prevention program, and really trying to map and measure that circle of safety. The other group will not receive the training at first, but then they'll get it later on. So everybody will still benefit from the presumed wonderful program, Circles of Safety. So I'm thrilled to embark on that project, and it's going to be such a significant contribution to the literature to know how this adult-focused education program can work, does it work, what parts of it work, how does it work, for whom does it work, and so excited to be working with a sport-focused organization like USA Football.
I wish I could tell you about all of the activities that Stop It Now is involved in, but we do want to share with you a new project that is especially dear to our hearts, the WhatsOK resource. I'm going to let some of our staff tell you about this exciting new program.
Which would serve as a safe place for youth ages 14 to 21 to reach out with questions and concerns about their own sexual interests, thoughts, and behaviors, and to get accurate information, guidance, and feedback. This service would run in conjunction with our existing helpline, with the addition of some expanded hours for accessibility, and also the addition of texting capability for youth that might be reaching out to us. We developed a whole new website as a part of this project that included developmentally appropriate content like frequently asked questions, blogs, and resources that we felt would be relevant to the youth that might be visiting our website.
WhatsOK is an expansion of Now's original work in a lot of ways. We're using social marketing to drive behavioral change and to reach people where they are when they're ready to ask for help. And we're especially excited that this is an interesting and new way to reach young people with primary perpetration prevention. So in many ways, we're expanding what Stop It Now has always been about just into 2022 and reaching a younger audience than before. The helpline counselors developed all of the content that you see on the website. We've got FAQs so that young people can get answers to those commonly asked questions that we're hearing through the helpline and get some reassurance that we aren't scared of what they have to ask, that they're normal for thinking these things. They're frequently asked for a reason. And secondarily, we've got a blog function that allows helpline counselors to really expand on specific questions and add some more of that hopeful, friendly, reassuring tone that's kind of been Now's signature since the start. A large way that we drive people to the website, the largest way, I should say, is through social media advertising. We knew that that was going to be the best way to, again, reach young people discreetly. They're already on their phones and we're advertising on platforms that young people told us they were on multiple times a day. So that's Snapchat, TikTok, and to a lesser extent, Instagram. So we're showing them ads that reflect the questions that we hear young people ask on the helpline and really invite them to explore tough questions. Every ad ends with a screen that says, it's okay to ask questions, WhatsOK is here to help, and drives them to a specific FAQ and then later to the helpline itself so that they can get the information that they need. Through our strong advertising results and the helpline inquiries that we're hearing, we know that this project works, and the feedback that we've gotten from professionals has been outstandingly positive. This really fills a gap of resources that simply didn't exist for young people for perpetration prevention and for just asking tough questions about sex and sexuality that engages with young people and treats them with respect and gives them hope and accountability all at the same time. So we're really excited to continue to see this project grow.
It's my pleasure to present our first ever Founders Award, given in honor of the compassion and hope that Fran Henry courageously and brilliantly brought to the field of child sex abuse prevention. From the moment that Mark Rosenberg informed us that the Conrad Hilton Foundation wanted to support a Stop It Now Founders Award, Peter Pollard was really the first person we thought of to honor with this inaugural award. Fran's wisdom, courage, insight, and again, her courage and hope changed how we have thought about sex abuse prevention over the past 30 years. And we wanted to honor someone who has also inspired us to bravely push forward, ask difficult questions, and then to listen carefully so that we can really hear what people need in order to feel safe. Peter has been this person for so many, and I'm so delighted to get a moment to share more with you all about the amazing contribution that Peter has made, not only to Stop It Now, but really to the world. Peter Pollard has been a visiting fellow at the Office for Victims of Crime at the U.S. Department of Justice, focusing on engaging males who've experienced trauma and violence. He's worked for the past 30 years as a violence prevention and intervention specialist, including 15 years as a state child protection social worker, director of public education at Stop It Now, the communications director for 1 in 6, a national organization serving men who've had unwanted or abusive sexual experiences, and as a group facilitator for males participating in an intimate partner abuse prevention program. He's additionally served as the Western Massachusetts coordinator for SNAP, Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests, and he has numerous publications and writings sharing his perspective from one who has lived experience as a survivor of clergy sexual abuse and continues to consult and support both prevention and healing efforts, working with now most recently in our research culminating in recommendations to the Springfield, Massachusetts Catholic Diocese for their next steps in healing, accountability, and prevention. And he serves on our advisory board, always sharing his time so generously when we reach out to him for his expertise and guidance. I met Peter about 7 years ago. Peter, you speak and share from such a knowing, compassionate, and responsible place, and it surely is not always easy to balance those. You're just gentle without fading away, and you're strong without being overbearing, and your courage, compassion, and conviction that sex abuse can be prevented and that we can do that by including everyone impacted by this issue in the conversation and the decision making is inspiring and just brings light to anyone lucky enough to work with you. I personally am grateful for all that I've already learned from you, and I feel that anyone who gets to work with you really gets a gift. Your insight, along with your amazing observations, curiosity, and humor, just helps folks shift perspectives, and this has just had such an immense impact on prevention. There's really just so much I could say, but Peter, we did ask a longtime friend and of yours and field colleague Joan Tabachnik to also say a few words. So let's hear from her next.
I am so excited to know that Peter Pollard is getting the first Founders Award from Stop It Now. I cannot think of a better person to be recognized and celebrated today. Certainly, Peter has all the qualifications and broad experience from working with Stop It Now, Department of Children and Families, the Office of Violence Against Women, 1 in 6, which is a male survivor group, SNAP, which is the Survivors Networks of Those Abused by Priests. And he's also on the Now Advisory Committee, and I could go on and on and on. But what makes Peter the perfect choice is that he totally embodies the very core concepts that make Stop It Now what it is today. Many survivors come to this work out of their emotions and their anger. It's a very powerful combination, and that anger, I think, has made the world sit up and pay attention to this issue. But Peter also brings his emotions to this issue, but rather than anger, he starts from a place of heart, hope, and compassion. I can tell you that every meeting that I go to with Peter, even in his introductions, he knows how to talk about not just what he does, but why he does it and how he got to where he is. And he challenges all of us to explore what drives people who cause the harm, or the people who disagree with most, and does not vilify them or shame them, because in fact, he reminds all of us that shame does not allow us to change. So the core values of Stop It Now is about holding both accountability and compassion at the same time. And as a survivor, he understands the importance of accountability. And as Peter Pollard, he also understands the importance of compassion. And to me, this is Stop It Now, and this is Peter Pollard. So I am thrilled that, Peter, you are getting this award today. Congratulations, Mazel Tov, and hope to see you soon.
I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do for prevention. It's just an honor getting to know you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. This award carries so many meanings for me on so many levels. When I first came to work for Stop It Now in 2005, after 15 years as a child protective social worker, I felt I'd arrived at a place of safety and hope. a place where the idea that adopting a complex view of human behavior and what drives it could actually prevent violence. And for the first time in my professional career, my own experience of healing from childhood sexual abuse was seen as an asset rather than a potential flaw that I had to hide. I've always interpreted Fran's vision to mean that the world isn't divided into good and evil people. Instead, we've got some people who've had access to resources to begin healing from past trauma, others who've struggled with very limited or no resources. Lacking options, the latter folks are often drawn to survival strategies that can hurt others or themselves. Stop It Now's strength has always been its insistence that adequate resources can produce different outcomes. That public health approach in all its wisdom. Over the years, working as a prevention and intervention specialist, I've been privileged to learn lots of lessons from the people I've tried to serve. Lessons about the effects of trauma, about the power of prevention, the importance of community responsibility, and when seeking accountability, the value of preserving the dignity of both the people who suffer harm and of the people who cause that harm. What I learned from young men of color in communities plagued by systemic racism, overwhelming rates of poverty, few opportunities, and high rates of violence, from young boys and girls who I removed from their families because of abuse or neglect, adults recovering from lives disrupted by unwanted or abusive sexual experiences, from individuals who've hurt others and from bystanders in a position to intervene, is that they're all making decisions about survival based on safety considerations that we as providers often can't even conceive of. I came to believe that if we really want to support change, we have to try to view the world through their lens, to understand their behaviors, and expand their options. We need to listen better, observe more, talk less, and avoid shaming at all costs. Those lessons have led me again and again back to Stop It Now, where I find those principles and values in daily practice, changing lives, acting as a beacon of safety and hope for many. For that, I'm grateful eternally to Fran, to Joan, and the others who crafted that vision in the early days. Also to those who've kept it alive and vibrant all these years later. That collective accomplishment is what's truly worthy of an award. So thank you.
As we look into the future, we remain hopeful, and we plan to grow and reach more people. We will continue to collaborate with researchers and other experts to evaluate not only our programming, but how, as a society, we address sexual abuse and its prevention in all environments, in families, and with individuals. This year alone, in collaboration with our NOW colleagues in the Netherlands, UK, and Flanders, we co-authored the chapter Moving Forward in Offender-Oriented Prevention, the Stop It Now Prevention Project from an international perspective in the newly published book, Challenges in the Management of People Convicted of a Sexual Offense, A Way Forward. And over the next year, we'll be sharing findings from a study on the history of Stop It Now to inform future directions. The study, funded by the Oak Foundation and conducted by the University of Sunshine Coast in Australia, was a joint effort between the US and the UK and Scotland Stop It Now teams to capture the journeys of how all the NOW programs around the globe work and to help assist us to enhance our collaborative efforts to educate about and support prevention around the world. We have a lot to learn still and a lot still to do. One thing that is critical and that we know we want to acknowledge is that we're aware that you're only seeing white faces in this presentation. This isn't acceptable to us. We know a pathway to prevention is important everywhere and that it may look different for different people. We aim to make all our resources and conversations acceptable and respectful to every single person in any community, in any culture, anywhere. We need to do better to our commitment to equity, diversity, with more inclusivity in all that we do. So we need to reach out more, listen more, learn more with cultural humility. We continue to strive to provide content and materials that are gender inclusive, that uses person-first language, that stays current with the latest research. Stop It Now has always been built on research, on evidence-based principles, and as we heard, a public health approach. And this means that we hit the 3 pillars of public health, based in science, collaborative, and focused on prevention. Our intention is to continue to learn more about our own model, how we make a difference, how the conversations we have are so important.
If you had one wish for the future of Stop It Now, what would that wish be, Fran?
If there's one wish that I would have for Stop It Now, is that that's what Stop It Now has already learned from this experience of prevention and these experiences that people have shared through the helpline, that kind of learning would be made into some, be able to be transformed into some program realities that let us take it, through the next decade and the decade after that, that really help us get to people sooner, better, that the message gets out in a way that really resonates with where people are now on this issue.
If we can remember the lessons from Stop It Now and the lessons from child sexual abuse going forward, maybe we can avoid some of the problems that have come up in the way we deal with pandemics. Whenever there's a public health crisis, whether it's HIV, AIDS, or Ebola, or swine flu, bird flu, or COVID, we mobilize fairly quickly and respond in a substantial way. But then the crisis passes and we tend to forget those lessons. And we don't build the infrastructure we'll need to respond. We don't remain prepared. And I hope the same thing doesn't happen in the area of child sexual abuse. I hope that we will understand the lessons. I hope that we'll continue to apply them and build the kind of infrastructure and mobilize the kind of full community participation we need to really make sure that child sexual abuse becomes rare. Maybe we won't eradicate the problem or get down to 0 cases, but let's make it rare. Let's remember the lessons and let's go forward. And I think in that way, Stop It Now will continue to play such an incredibly important role.
What if we could actually get ahead of it and prevent the offenses from happening in the first place? Think about all the positive downstream benefits, right? Like perpetrators could, or I should say potential perpetrators could lead, healthier, happier lives. We prevent victimization. We prevent the use of resources trying to play catch up. There's still so many benefits. And then what really struck me actually is that I think there was an increasing recognition about prevention within our field and within, allied sectors. But in the last 2 years, I've really seen the conversation on prevention move, because I think a lot of people get, thinking about COVID, it's better to prevent it wearing masks and ventilating spaces and getting your vaccinations than going to the ICU and being put on a ventilator and getting a medication that may or may not, save your life. I think people really intuitively got that. And so I feel like that as an analogy or a metaphor for prevention has really grabbed people's attention. It's better to prevent COVID than to treat it after you get it.
I wonder, in your view, what does the future of child sexual abuse prevention look like? And how does NOW fit into that future?
It's super exciting. It's really like the last 4 years or 5 years have seen an explosion of the development of prevention interventions. Stop It Now is supporting that. One, just by providing data. I mean, one thing we saw, so let me back up for a second. There are now 40 or 50 child sexual abuse perpetration prevention interventions that my colleague Michael Cito and I identified as part of a scoping study that we did earlier this year. And we were shocked. We had no idea there were that many. We thought there was maybe 10. But there are none that focus on one area of need. There's not any programs that we could find that focused on helping stepfathers who may be attracted to their stepdaughters or stepsons and don't know what to do with that. Stop It Now US and Stop It Now UK collaborated with us to provide data on their website metrics, before COVID and during COVID, so we could get a sense of what was happening during the pandemic. And one thing that we saw in the US was an increase in traffic. And we, it really pointed to a need for more services for that particular area. So I would say that the future is very, very exciting, identifying where the gaps are and filling those gaps, having organizations that are willing to share their data with us, partner with us in the development of programs like this, and then partner with us in validating them, so that we can support what works and revise what needs work.
I'm really excited, in terms of sort of my own focus with regards to research. I'm involved with colleagues in Europe and in the United States and in Canada, looking at child sexual abuse perpetration prevention. And one of our tasks for this work is identify what's available. And Stop It Now is clearly, as I said, a pioneering model. But there's a variety of other resources as well. There's helplines in other countries. There's self-help sites. There's clinician-guided interventions online. There's in-person treatment. I think there's not one kind of person, not one kind of concern, and so we need a range, a variety of different options. So I'm really excited. We're identifying what's available, and just even in the last few years, the number of prevention-oriented services has really grown. And the next phase of our project is to identify the most promising interventions, to evaluate them, and provide that evidence, because of course it's not enough to have those resources. We need to know how well they work and for whom, and to be able to provide evidence-based services.
One thing that we have seen through other people's efforts that have come online since Stop It Now started is people who are willing to listen to so-called maps. I realize that's a term that's been controversial in some areas, so I'm not looking down my nose at it, but just saying it seems to be a term that's very much in flux. But there are increasing numbers of people who, again, are simply willing to hear and listen to and respect and understand those that are seeking not to abuse to begin with. And so again, it starts at the personal level. I'm convinced that the future of child sexual abuse prevention is in many respects the same as its past. You'll listen to the great minds like Michael Cito and Elizabeth Letourneau talk about research, finding out what programs work and don't work. And my angle on all of this will be that it still comes down to the respectful human conversation, one in which people are willing to not only listen, but to understand.
Pat, what are some of your hopes for Stop It Now's future?
Well, I think it would be great for the world if Stop It Now could expand their role as a national leader in child sexual abuse. I think they have a unique voice. Another accomplishment that I didn't mention is that they've gotten better at and created opportunities for ways to share what they've learned from their work, reports, presentations, a chapter in a book, they learn a lot from the people who call the helpline, the people they train, and have an important voice in the national dialogue on this difficult subject. We hope to have the helpline expand so it covers more hours and has more personnel available. We've already expanded it into text, email, chat. So we're working with all the media, all the different ways of communicating, and hopefully that enables us to reach more people. We also have a goal of making sure that we're reaching out to communities of color, and that people who may have had a lot of reason to distrust authority can have this anonymous resource where they can get help and maybe move them towards whatever their next steps are. Stop It Now provides awesome training, which they've provided to many different sectors, but I'd like to see that expand. There's so many people that could use that training. Any system that works with children, whether it be a higher ed or a camp or a football team, I'd like to see that expand. And then, of course, I'd really like them to have greater financial security and that they will continue to grow with other grants, more donations, more awareness, and more financial security.
We hope to do this work for many more years, but we can't do this alone. This presentation was not designed solely around fundraising. We wanted to share with you the impact of this work, a little bit of our history, what we're doing now, where we hope to be in the future. But yes, we need your help. So please join us in marking this milestone anniversary for now and sustain our work for years to come. Your gift right now is an investment in the vital programs and services we offer every day to parents, to professional and community members who create safe environments, support the people who are most likely to harm, and give adults the space to ask tough questions. And now also give space to young people who need support so desperately. These conversations help change lives, and we hope that you will join us in changing lives. Consider giving monthly, $30 a month as a circle of donor who makes a difference, or give what you can. We're grateful to all of the many people who have been supporting us for so many years. We'd like to share a few of those voices and why it's so important.
I'm struck by how hard it has been and what a struggle it has been to try and mobilize adequate resources to support Stop It Now. Why is it harder in the area of child sexual abuse to bring about that change?
It was an issue when I founded Stop It Now in '92, it was still being called an unspeakable thing. When you call something unspeakable, just think about what we have to do in April to just be able to speak about it, right? So many survivors had to come forward. I think when you're dealing with a situation where a victim is a child and developmentally not able to make decisions themselves or fathom things themselves, and they trust the person who's harming them, it's a complicated thing to address, for society to address, not just the child, not just the adults, but the whole society to address, because that kind of power imbalance is extremely painful for society to face. Who wants to admit that this kind of harm, as common as it is, that this kind of harm is really going on among us?
Hello, my name is Elaine Spangler, and I have been a supporter of Stop It Now for almost 10 years. I became involved when my husband was convicted of sexually abusing a preteen boy from our neighborhood. It was a devastating time for our families. I had no personal experience with sexual abuse of children, so I was searching for help to assist me in understanding more about why my husband and others like him would do this and what could have prevented them from crossing the line that ended in abuse. He was a good man. Those who knew him never imagined he would be convicted for child abuse. I went to countless trainings and seminars on the prevention of sexual abuse of children, but each one left me with the same question. If we really want to end the sexual abuse of children, why isn't anyone looking to help the people who are at risk to offend before they offend? It made perfect sense to me. Not only would it save the child from abuse, but it will also save the offender. and all families from the pain and suffering. Isn't that what primary prevention is all about? Going to the root cause of the problem instead of treating only the symptoms. Stop It Now was the only organization that I found that had the foresight to see that perpetrators are human beings too. They need assistance and deserve resources in order to break the cycle of abuse. These are the reasons that I have chosen to provide ongoing support to Stop It Now. My donations have been productively used to provide updated resources, to expand the availability to their helpline, and to research more ways to reach people who need assistance, especially those who are at risk to offend. In closing, I would tell you that if you really want to help reduce, if not extinguish, the sexual abuse of children, Stop It Now is not only ready, but is most reliable and a worthy organization in which to put your support. Please join me in being part of the solution by supporting Stop It Now on its 30th anniversary. Thank you.
My name is Jeff Chugum. Thank you for your attendance at today's event. Obviously, we're all celebrating Van Henry and the start of the foundation 30 years ago today. In fact, I often think if it had started, say, 40 years ago, I probably wouldn't be having this conversation with you. Myself and fellow survivors didn't have these type of resources available a few decades ago. So kudos to Stop It Now and all that it's done. It's been a great inspiration to me. In fact, I've actually begun my own foundation, the Empowerment for the Protection of Individuals, otherwise known as EPI. And as you can tell, I have been motivated to make a contribution, a matching contribution in celebration of the 30th anniversary. So we look to seek as much as possible. We realize, of course, that each individual that I'm speaking to, or all of us have spoken to, has a lot of financial draws in a lot of areas. There's a lot of great causes out there, without a doubt. I have given time in volunteer areas for about 30 years to different places. However, I've really found a home to Stop It Now and organizations like it. What I like about it is it's about stopping the story from happening. Instead of healing someone, how about we stop it from being known? With your contributions in mind, with our efforts, and more importantly, the efforts of the individuals with Stop It Now. Everyone has a story of challenge. Everyone has a story or circumstances that affects them. But I'd like to take that chapter out of the story, and this organization helps to do that. So blessings to Fran Henry, blessings to this organization and all that they represent. And I hope you too are as appreciative of that organization as am I. Take care.
I think there are two real key areas that we need to move on if we are going to bring the world along to a prevention focus when it comes to child sexual abuse. As you well know, child sexual abuse affects 1 in 9 children globally. That's, in the US and around the world. And it is a preventable public health problem, but we address it primarily through after the fact interventions. And just to give you a quick example, my colleagues and I recently published a paper documenting how much we spend in the United States to incarcerate people for sex crimes against children. And we spend collectively about $5.4 billion annually, so every year, to incarcerate people for sex crimes against children. That number is tied to fiscal year 2021. In that same year, the US federal government spent $1.5 million on supporting child sexual abuse prevention research. So $1.5 million is 0.00002% of the amount of money that we spend on incarceration. And I am not saying that we need to pull money out of incarceration. What we certainly need to do is add money to prevention. So the first thing I would say is that we have got to really begin to fully fund prevention efforts in this country and elsewhere.
We've come to the end of our presentation today. We appreciate all of you who have been watching us, who have been supporting us over the years, or who maybe have just discovered us and are learning more. Each one of you matters to us in ways that you just don't even know. It supports us to know that folks out there are reaching out, sharing the information, and care. There are some special folks I really would like to thank for the work at Stop It Now and for this presentation. First, our helpline counselors are amazing. I said that earlier, but I want to call them out by name. Brittany Gordon, Micah Waxman, Mackenzie Matthew Busher. I wanted to make sure I got your names right so you saw me reading them, because my heart is full when I think about the work that you all have done and continue to do, how you show up for people with your whole heart and really care about each individual in ways that just are inspiring. To Julie O'Brien, thank you so much. Your guidance as our development and communications manager certainly has kept me sane through this process of putting together this presentation. You are always hopeful. You make us laugh. You get the job done. I trust you. Thank you. And Dylan Gagnon, you have created a miracle putting this presentation together. Your calmness and can-do attitude is inspiring. So lucky to have you on this team. You know, I forgot one of the most important things to share with you all about why Stop It Now is so important, why it's unique, why it's a leader. We do hear about cases of child sexual abuse every day. We hear about them out, at big schools, at colleges. We hear about it online. Stop It Now is here for folks in the moment that they need help, which is most often first in the privacy of their home, in the privacy of their core relationships with people they love, people they care about, people they've trusted. They're scared, they're confused. Nobody wants to speak about this issue, but you have those nagging doubts that something isn't wrong in your house. This is who Stop It Now has been here for and will continue to be here for. We hope for at least another 30 years, if not way, way much longer. Thank you so much, everyone. Take good care.
Stop It Now exemplifies the power of possibility in the face of the improbable. It has been a privilege to be a small part of the work that touches the lives of those impacted at a societal, familial, and personal level from the impact of child sexual abuse. It continues this work, and indeed, we need to stop it now. Thank you so much.
Congratulations to Stop It Now for all that you've accomplished so far, and best wishes to Jenny Coleman and her wonderful staff for the next 30 years of advocacy, innovation, prevention, and making the world a safer place for children. Thanks so much for all that you do.
I look forward to 30 years from now, when we can celebrate even greater accomplishments for Stop It Now and our efforts to stop child sexual abuse now and forever. Thank you.
It was and is an amazing organization. I hope it continues for another many years. And I know that it has changed indirectly and directly the whole issue of childhood sexual abuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, and colleagues from Stop It Now US. We are convinced that the Stop It Now projects are of high importance and can substantially contribute to the prevention of child sexual abuse. Once again, thank you all for all your initiatives and enjoy your day.
Congratulations again and thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Thank you so much for the work that you do. I celebrate you, and I just want to say happy birthday.
I'm just so in admiration of, from beginning to today, the work of Stop It Now, and fully support and applaud you. And I'm going to say another 30 years, how about on to infinity.
Happy anniversary, Stop It Now, and especially to the staff who are keeping this important, vibrant work alive, this movement alive, and this dream alive. Happy anniversary. 30 years ago, Stop It Now introduced a radical new concept. Can we use public health approaches to reach out to adults and communities rather than just kids to prevent child sexual abuse? I'm not sure I can fully capture what it was like 30 years ago. Child sexual abuse was a topic that literally no one wanted to talk about. It was not in the news, it was not on TV, it was not in TV shows or the movies. And the meme at the time was, how do we break the silence around child sexual abuse? And I can happily say after 30 years that we've done that. But we went from silence to the idea that these are monsters hiding in our communities, waiting to take away our children. And most recently, I'm just beginning to hear something that was unheard of, I think, 30 years ago when Stop It Now was started, that people are beginning to say, this could be my son. 30 years ago, the foundation that we laid is still strong and still offers a unique and an essential voice in our field. What makes Stop It Now so unique is that the organization looks at the whole person, whether you've been harmed or whether you've caused the harm. Stop It Now looks at the whole family and everyone who's been affected. And Stop It Now looks at the whole community and the systems that are responding. So it looks at all these multiple layers. And if there's any doubt how important this approach is, the message is still vibrant and is spreading around the world. So I'm thrilled to say happy anniversary. And thank you to Jenny Coleman and all the staff at Stop It Now who continues to keep this dream alive.